If the idea of having an army of wolves is appealing to you, this is the build for you. In this build, you're going to have more wolves than you can count, and they're going to deal insane damage. You can absolutely destroy Torment 4 bosses, and I've already cleared a Pit 100 on this with time to spare, and I haven't even masterworked my gear fully yet. I've streamlined the build so that you don't have any of the major pain points that you normally get with companions, and it feels extremely good to play. Our lucky hit chance is so good in this build that you won't even realize there's a cooldown on your wolves. You can spam it like it's a basic skill. Now I'm going to break down all of the details for the build, but if you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and come hang out with me on my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/streamhard, and I'll answer any questions you might have. Now let me show you what I got. So first off, as you can see, we've got a heap of wolves here. I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to attack this one enemy with only my wolves. Literally, one button, just holding down wolves, non-stop. And this is a single enemy. That means that almost no matter what, you're going to get guaranteed wolf resets. Now obviously you get a lot more out of it when you actually buff and use your other skills, but being able to spam your wolves is key to making the build feel really good. Now I'm going to start by explaining some of the key points that make the build work, and then I'll go through the skills. So first off, the two most important items that make sure that we get our resets on our wolves guaranteed is the Fists of Fate, which have a huge lucky hit chance, and same thing for the Storm's Companion, another really high lucky hit chance. You can see on these pants, even with only one bonus in them, I'm getting 187%. If you look at our wolves, we have 100% lucky hit chance, and the same goes for most of our other skills. And the reason we're getting those resets from the lucky hit chance is because of Pack Leader, and we also have really good critical strike chance, so this is always activating. Now, to be honest, most of the rest of the build is pretty straightforward. We have a bunch of aspects that are increasing our amount of companions and also increasing our damage. We're using Grizzly Rage and Rabid Bear so that we can turn all of our damage poison, which allows us to synergize stuff, but it also increases our damage. We're using Rampaging Werebeast to keep our ultimate longer and do more damage, and Shepherds, which is giving us a bunch more damage based on the number of companions we have. Now, the wolves don't have a large AoE, so we're using Eridas mixed with our ultimate and a decent amount of cooldown reduction in order to allow us to use our ult fairly often. It's only got a 14-second cooldown, and we're reducing the cooldown with Combo for the Storm. And because our Storm's Companion is making our wolves a storm skill, even our wolves, when they're passively attacking, can reduce the cooldown of our ultimate. Now I'll get into the items with more detail, but first let me go through the skills. So first off, we've got our Poison Creeper. This is acting as an additional passive to increase our damage. It also poisons enemies, but one of the main reasons we're using it is that when you activate it, you're immobilizing enemies, which increases our damage against them because of a passive in our skill tree. With Debilitating Roar, we're increasing our damage, and we're reducing enemy damage. So this is good to use whenever you can. Hitting enemies with our Ravens is increasing our critical strike against them, but having the Ravens down just gives us more lucky hit chance to reset our wolves, even though our wolves basically reset it anyways. But spamming the Ravens is not that important, but you can actually get some fairly decent damage out of them. Our Grizzly Rage is extremely important to maintain, because this is giving us a lot of damage bonuses, especially with those two aspects I mentioned before. And it's important to keep in mind that we have Quick Shift, which is a bonus that you can keep for the entire duration that you're shapeshifted. So you're going to want to stack that before you go in your ultimate. But the way I'm going to recommend doesn't actually matter if you're in your ult or not. I'm going to recommend that you stack it by using your maul and then emoting. You only have to do it enough times to get your stacks to 6. So as you can see here, that was fairly quick, and you can do that while you're running through a dungeon, so you don't have to do it at the beginning before you start running in. You can start running automatically. Now, if you'd prefer not to do it that way, it's going to take a little bit longer, in which case you'd use your Maul, then Ravens, Maul, then Creeper, Maul, then Ravens, Maul, then Creeper, and you can stack it up pretty quickly that way. However, in order to get the resets like I just had, you have to have enemies around. So you can see that the Ravens are over there attacking and getting lucky hit chances. That's resetting the Ravens. And it's actually kind of insane just how easy it is to get your resets right now. But keep in mind, once you're in your ultimate, you can't actually get the stacks, because then it'll count you as being in werebear form when you use your companion skills. Now we've got Maul in the build, but this is actually not entirely necessary, but I'm including here just to be sure that you guys don't have any issues, especially if your lucky hit chance happens to be lower, because you'll need something in between to get your resets. Once you get your build optimized, feel free to swap this out for something like Shred, and that's actually going to increase your damage because it doubles your Toxic Claws passive. Not to mention it'll give you more mobility, so keep that in mind. In fact, I'll probably update the endgame guide to have the Shred in it, but I'm going to play on that a little bit tomorrow and test it to be sure I want to recommend that. And then of course our wolves, which are the bread and butter of the build and our main damage source. Alright, so let's go through the rest of the items. We've got Air of Perdition, which is giving us a huge amount of critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, movement speed, and a 60% damage multiplier. As you can see here, mine is rolled in favor of core skills because I was using it for different builds, but preferably you'd have critical strike chance and lucky hit chance here. Critical strike chance up to your cap, and the rest into lucky hit chance. For your chest piece, you want Shroud of False Death, because this unlocks a lot of damage passives, and it also gives you a huge amount of alt stats. We already covered the Fists of Fate. Now keep in mind that the passive on Fists of Fate means that you're either doing less damage or more damage, but it averages to a 50% damage increase if the passive is maxed. Another nice thing about these gloves is that it applies vulnerable, which gives you a 20% damage increase. For the boots, we went with Yen's Blessing. These are nice because it solves our resist problems, which means we don't have to take as much elsewhere. But keep in mind, if you're running this, you're going to have pretty low armor, which you'll compensate for by activating your Elixir and Incense. You can see that we're 625, and when we activate our ultimate, we go over 1,000. And I actually haven't taken the additional armor in the Paragon boards, so that's an option as well. However, I am getting some from my Rahir, which is 15%, so keep that in mind as well. You can see that my resistances are basically capped out, and I haven't even finished masterworking my boots, so there's plenty of room to cap out your resistances. So for our offensive aspects, we've got Stampede. This is giving us the additional companions, and it's also giving us damage multiplier. Those additional companions build into our shepherds, which gives us more damage based off the number of companions. And keep in mind that our runes that give us the spirit wolves are also adding to the shepherds. And we already talked about the rampaging werebeast and rabid bear, so let's get into the runes. So our first rune is going to be Nagu Se, and the Nagu is giving us offering based off the number of summons we have, and we're using this to maintain our spirit wolves. So we're using summons to maintain summons. For our other runes, we're going with Yulzon, and this one gives us guaranteed critical strikes and overpower whenever we use cooldowns. So you'll notice that when we're spamming our wolves, we're getting overpowers fairly often. We're also getting a little bit of overpowers from our passive tree, but for the most part, it's coming from this. For the seasonal jewels, we're going with Idol from Below, Scornful Light, and the Summons one. We're going to throw a couple sapphires in our helmet, and then for our weapons, we're going with rubies. For our spirit boons, we're going with Wariness for damage reduction, Scythe Talons for critical strike chance and lucky hit chance. This isn't a whole lot of lucky hit chance, so it's not going to make or break your build. So if you don't need the critical strike chance, for example, if you had a GA on your critical strike chance on your Perdition, you probably wouldn't need it. If that's the case, go for the Iron Feather for the extra maximum life. Or you could go for Masochistic, but I actually don't use the Maul enough to make this useful. We're also going with Avian Wrath for damage, Pack Leader, and then Calm Before the Storm for those ultimate cooldowns. For our seasonal powers, we're going with Nebulous. This is going to give us some damage reduction. We're going with Bloody Charm for Execute, and pairing that with Disintegrate for even better executes. Fractured Core to remove enemy damage resistance aura, and then Invigorating Helix in order to give us healing and fortify. And this is basically our only source of healing outside of potions, so it's pretty important to have. The elixirs and incense that I'm going with are Advantage, but you could swap this if you wanted to for life. Blessed Guide for willpower, which could be swapped for all stats if you need it. Redamine Buzz for maximum life, which could be swapped for armor if you need it. And Soothing Spices for all resist, but you can swap this for the ones that give you specific bonuses to resistances and give you more of those if you need those ones specifically. For our mercenaries, we're going with her here on the armor side, but you can go resist if you need that instead. And for reinforcement, Variana for some attack speed. We're going with Bloodthirst and any skill. For our skill tree, we're doing 2 points in Maul. We're going to max out Iron Ferb for damage reduction. We're maxing out Backlash, Feral Aptitude, Call of the Wild, Toxic Claws, Envenom, Resonance, Natural Disaster, Defiance, Catastrophe, and Quick Shift for more damage. We're getting Ancestral Fortitude for resistances, getting Debilitating Roar and the 2 additional points for extra damage. We have 1 additional point here that we had left over to reduce its cooldown. We're maxing out our wolves and going to Brutal Wolf Pack for more attack speed. We're getting Poison Creeper and going to Brutal Poison Creeper for critical strike chance, so make sure you factor this in when you're doing your critical strike chance calculations. We're getting Ravens and going to Brutal Ravens for the 2 additional Ravens. We're maxing out Mending for more max life and healing, maxing out Heightened Senses for damage reduction and movement speed, maxing out Grizzly Rage for the armor and the cooldown reduction on the ultimate, and getting the 2 additional points. And then we're going with One with Nature. For our Paragon board, we're going to start on the starting board with Keeper. We're going to move up and attach Heightened Malice, and here we're going with Spirit. Then we're moving left. We're going to attach our Survival Instincts board, and here we're going with Dominate. Moving down from here, we're going to attach our Thunderstruck board, and we're using Earth and Sky here. Finally, moving to the left, we're going to attach our Untamed board, and here we're going with Wilds. Now keep in mind that you're going to get the most damage out of your Wilds glyph early on. So if you check my written guide underneath the video, you can see that I have an end game, mid game, and early game tab. And the early game tab leads with the Wilds glyph. So make sure you're paying attention to that as you're leveling. So I talked a bit about what the skills do, but let me just talk to you for a second about how I actually play the build, just to make sure you guys are on the right track. So after I've done my shapeshifting in order to build up my stacks, I pop my ultimate, and then when I'm in a group of enemies, I'm usually going to lead with Debilitating Roar, as well as Creeper, And once I've activated my debilitating roar and my creeper, that's when I'm going to start spamming my wolves out. You can use your maul occasionally, and just make sure that you reactivate your ultimate before it runs off each time. But you should activate it as soon as possible because you get a damage buff from it and you pull enemies in with the Erda's Ring. You can drop your ravens intermittently, as well as reapplying your debilitating roar and your poison creeper whenever you feel the need to. But at the end of the day, just hold down your wolves, and you should be able to just spam constantly. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the build. I actually found this one a lot of fun to put together, and I'm going to spend some more time optimizing my gear and seeing how high I can push with it because it felt really good. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to stop by my Twitch stream, like, comment, and subscribe. Daddy Druid out.
Subscribe to Scream Heart. He's more than an old fart. He makes lots of fun builds. I promise his streams chill. He should probably be faster. Come watch this disaster.